even though organizations have supposedly been investing a lot of time and energy into training and awareness, like the felt experience for women hasn't really changed.
Welcome to Beyond Borders New York Edition, a Multiplier talk series that brings together global first thought leaders and entrepreneurs to discuss the future of work. In this episode, we're unpacking the challenges and opportunities for women in the global workforce.
Welcome to Multipliers Beyond Borders, Women in Global Workplace Fireside Chat. And I am Jennifer Briede, Vice President of Client Solutions at Multiplier. And I am so excited to be here today with Erin Grau. Erin?
I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yes. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Erin?
Sure. So I am one of the co-founders of Charter. We're a future of work media and insights company. We're backed by Bloomberg and the Financial Times. It's a company I started with a colleague from the New York Times, which is actually just over your shoulder. That's the New York Times building.
Cool.
And we write about work and leadership in this new world of AI and the political climate, the socioeconomic climate. And so we feel real urgency to talk about women in particular and what organizations can be doing to better support all workers, but especially for me, women.
That's so amazing. Such great work that you guys are doing over at Charter, for sure. So what do you think are the biggest setbacks women still face in the workplace today?
So there are many, but I guess to start, I would just say we see the number of women in leadership has grown in the past 10 years. The Lean-In report is 10 years old, and that's something they found. But one thing that hasn't changed is the felt experience of women, the bias, the microaggressions. And so even though organizations have supposedly been investing a lot of time and energy into training and awareness, like the felt experience for women hasn't really changed.
What do you mean by felt experience? What does that look like?
I think the experience for women, that you look at these women who've made it into these leadership roles, they've made it into those roles often despite how they're being treated, the bias against them. And particularly when you think about the motherhood penalty, it's very real. And so many organizations are not friendly to caregiving. We saw some more flexibility during the pandemic, and we see kind of a pulling back on that flexibility at many organizations. And so, and that really is a key to get more women into leadership positions.
Yeah, I benefited a lot from flexibility during the pandemic.
Same.
Being able to work from home, work from anywhere, being able to raise my kids and be there for them after school. It was so important to me. Prior to that, I just didn't have that extra time. It was an amazing, amazing development. I often say that like the work-life balance that I was searching for pre-pandemic, I found post-pandemic. So COVID was a bit of a blessing for me in that way.
Same. It was for me. I know our kids are the same age. They're 8 and 10. And I think the same thing for me. I mean, I actually didn't really know any other way. There weren't any other models for me before the pandemic. I just assumed that I would have to not see them in the morning or not see them at night and trade off with my husband if I was going to get any flexibility and make sure I was still moving up in my career. And the pandemic really broke open for a lot of women like us more opportunities and like language around and like systemic change around some of these things that we felt were so like calcified.
That's right.
We thought like this is how you succeed in the workplace, but actually we know a better way on the other side of the pandemic. So I'm with you.
Right. How is it that flexible work is changing the game for women who are working?
Yeah, I mean, the economist Claudia Goldin, she won a Nobel Prize a few years ago for her work around the pay gap and opportunity gap for women. And the big thing is caregiving and flexibility. And so we know that if women, and everybody, but women have the opportunity to flex their schedules and their roles around caregiving, which disproportionately falls to women, they have more opportunities to grow their careers and grow their salaries over time.
Right.
And we also know that when women are afforded that, and this is kind of like in more like heterosexual couples, but when women are afforded more flexibility, they have higher earning potential. They can work outside of the home more, whether you're like working inside, you have a role that is at a company and not just within your own home, that men step up too. And they are more equal parents and caregivers, and they shoulder some of that responsibility. So like our kids get to grow up in a world where, you know, it is more equal. Like roles are kind of more equal. And I think that's better for society. It's better for our kids. It's better for, you know, all genders.
Yeah. And caregiving isn't just for mothers, right? Caregiving can be any kind of work that you do outside of the home. As parents are aging, there's that care that has to happen. And
The sandwich generation we're all in. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think caregiving has not been recognized or valued, not just with a dollar amount on it, but just has not been valued in organizations. So much of the caregiving within organizations, women are shouldering too.
That's right.
The non-promotable tasks we're all doing, like celebrating people's birthdays, throwing all the parties, until kind of AI tools took this over, like a lot of note-taking. But at home, I think women still, even though there's been gains for men, again, in like heterosexual couples, for fathers, like they're spending more time with their kids, but women are spending on average like 2+ hours more a week on household responsibilities and caregiving than men.
It is interesting that you brought up caregiving almost in the workplace as like another labor that women do. Do you know what I mean? And I say that because I see that in a lot of the female leaders that I've worked with in the past, that they shoulder that responsibility of caregiving for their associates as well.
Yeah.
Just kind of helping them through the stressors, planning out their careers, different things, mentorship on a deeper, more emotional level than just the professional level as well.
Yeah, that's true. And women are actually penalized if you are not like the kind, friendly, supportive mentor in the workplace. You aren't a caregiver in the workplace. So it's almost like a no-win situation for women. And I think organizations just don't think about it in that way.
That's right.
And if men are less likely to do those caregiving responsibilities in the workplace, like they don't get penalized. And if they do it, there probably is some bump to them. Like, look at that guy. He's such a good guy. Like, I've had situations where fathers have left to go to the baseball game or the soccer game. And they're like, what an amazing dad that is.
What a good dad.
And if you, as a mother, you leave, they're like, you get the looks.
Yeah.
You get the looks. Even though I'm actually getting back online later to make up the work or the
there's
time.
The question, is she committed at that point? Is she more committed to her family and her children than she is to the
This is the bias that exists. Yeah. One of the many biases against women and mothers in the workplace.
So we were talking about how flexible work enables women, empowers women to achieve greater things than that they had in the past. Multiplier is a company that allows women and enables women to work for companies regardless of where they are. So you can be a woman who is sitting in Africa or Europe or India and work for a US-based company or a European company and have opportunities that you would have never had before. That's what global payroll and global HR do. It enables that for women.
Yeah, that's great. And in the pandemic, we learned that more women will enter the workforce if they have flexible options. We learned that. And we saw that in the jobs reports. We saw, and it defied expectations because there was the she-cession, as they called it, where women left the workforce to do more caregiving at the beginning of the pandemic. And then they came back in record numbers. And the answer to that is flexibility. That was what has made that possible.
How do we think that HR leaders can build systems that truly support equity for women?
I want to hear your answer to this question too, but I think that, there are many ways to answer that question. I think one thing in this moment that's really challenging is a lot of that work and thinking and strategy live with a DEI team. And a lot of DEI teams have kind of gone underground. They've been under-resourced, underfunded in some cases, cut completely. And so that work hasn't really been distributed elsewhere in an organization. Or we hear we got rid of our DEI team because it's everyone's job. And we know that if something is everyone's job, it's no one's job.
Yeah.
And so I think there really is, designing roles for flexibility. And everyone benefits. This is like the tide rises all boats. Like everyone benefits. And it's funny because when we were talking about this on LinkedIn and promoting it, that we 100% of the time, including this case, I see comments from men that are like, men wanted to. I'm like, yes. But actually, for flexibility, women want it in greater numbers. And if it's offered, women are more likely to take it. And then they're being penalized for taking it because you get she's not really that committed. She'd rather be home. She has these other responsibilities. So I think designing roles around for flexibility, I think is one big part. I think that the non-promotable tasks and being more aware of who is doing this work. And if it's work that is important for your organization, like culture building work, then people who do that work need to actually get the credit and recognition for that, or it needs to be equally distributed, or both. I think there's that. I mean, women's ERGs are really powerful. I ran the women's network at the New York Times. We wrote the parental leave policy at the Times. And so I think when women get together and can figure out what are the policies that the organization needs to have, like, I think that is a really powerful lever too. And not that we should put more work on women. I'm certainly not suggesting that. And I think if you're an ERG leader, you should be compensated for that additional work. But I think that's another big opportunity for organizations. And I think looking at, all the biases that are against women, like one kind of popular one is the prove it again bias. I mean, I saw data recently around women CEOs and female CEOs and the number of them that have to be president first versus men that get to ascend right to the CEO job.
Yes, I've seen that.
And we still see men getting promoted for potential and women getting promoted for performance because they have to prove and prove and prove that they can do that job. And they have to be nice and easy to work with and kind. And this is like the Hillary Clinton story, but you have to be competent and you have to be warm if you're a woman. And for men, the rules are just different.
Totally different. Erin, why don't you explain a little bit more about what an ERG is?
Yeah, so an ERG is an employee resource group. I know you've led some employee resource groups. I have too. And I think they're really a powerful way. I think one, community is really a powerful, you need the support, I think, from other women. Gloria Steinem says, gather, gather again. I think that is where you surface opportunities, where you figure out the actions to take. And there's a lot of power for us at the New York Times. Our Women's Network leadership team wrote the parental leave policy. And we started it over a lunch where we were all sharing. We were all either had young children or were, about to start families. And we got together and thought, what could keep us here? We love working here so much. We want to stay here and we want support for caregivers. And what that looked like, step one is parental leave. And not just parental leave for birth mothers, but parental leave, gender neutral leave, which I think sometimes is a little controversial. I think it's more European. But it's the idea that you are making a statement that both parents or all parents should equally take responsibility for raising this child. And that starts at birth, because if society and your workplace tells you, you are the birth mom, you should spend way more time. And we have a culture for supporting you. Right. We're probably not going to promote you later, but we think you should be with your baby right now. And dads, actually, maybe you shouldn't really be. And actually, if you take more leave, you probably won't get promoted either. And so I think there's the policy and then there's the support. But anyway, I digress because this is one of the levers I think that we pulled when I was at the Times. But ERGs I think are really powerful in building community and figuring out ways to develop and figuring out what your organization could be, should be, and how to get there. Yeah.
I think a social network at work is a good way to find support, hear new ideas, expand on different things, and really bounce things off of each other to solve big problems. Yeah. And so I think women in general are social creatures and we long for that. I've started 2 women's networks in prior roles, and they were amazingly powerful just in helping people, especially women younger in their careers, really find a mentor, somebody who had been there, done that in leadership. I mean, and it's not just about professional development, but it's also, how did you navigate this when you were trying to have a baby? How did you navigate prenatal appointments? How did you navigate this kind of thing and manage all of it? Just those little simple things that women's networks can do to pass on a little bit of knowledge can be so helpful and so impactful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I had that too. I had the mentorship from women kind of above me, and I feel like I need to pay it forward too. And I want to. I mean, if you look at the pipeline from here into leadership, I'm nervous about it. I'm nervous right now. It's going to take 50 years for there to be parity, gender parity in corporate America. But that is threatened because, because of AI, because of what's happening with entry-level jobs, the disruption that's happening and the slower adoption of women. when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot more we need to be doing to bring this next generation up.
I want to get to AI, but I want to expand just a little bit more on the idea of mentorship. Because so I often say this, I stand on the shoulders of women who took an interest in me, female leaders who took an interest in me and said, you can do this, way before I believed in myself, right? And I truly feel that the way that we show our gratitude and express gratitude back to them is by doing things like professional development and like making it real, right? So some companies will invest in professional development, or they'll give you a learning track, do these activities, and there's promotional opportunity for you in the future. But it's more than that. It's not necessarily about promotional opportunity. It's about really developing women to have the confidence to take that next step, or to try something risky, or to be a part of a critical team. A lot of women are hesitant to take on those leadership roles, right? They don't feel like they're in a position to do that. Maybe because of their burdens at home, maybe because of, whatever else there is. So women's networks really can help inspire folks to take those steps forward.
I totally agree.
Tell me a little bit about the global workforce and parental leave, just trends that you're seeing.
American companies have had to step up and lead in things like caregiving, mental health, racial justice, because in this country, we don't have a lot of the infrastructure and government support that other countries do. And so as we expand, we're seeing new opportunities for this country, but a lot of that is going to have to live with organizations. And that is one gap that is hard for people to fully understand and metabolize. I think that means that we're now working with companies where, and in countries where there's more of a culture of support for parents, for families, for community, for support. But in terms of like numbers of weeks, for example, of parental leave, like in those countries, a lot of that comes from the government and the taxes that they're paying, and not always directly from the companies. Whereas in this country, it comes directly from companies in most, except for a handful of states. So yeah, I think like culturally, I'm excited about that. I think in terms of like who pays for what and how many weeks we can get to is another interesting, I think, piece of the puzzle. The other thing I'm really actually excited about is not just when the child is born, which is how we think about it. Like when we think about parental leave, we're like, oh, they support families because this company has X number of weeks, which we've been socialized to think is really generous. But I think it's the support they have for families long term. I think that's one big piece that we haven't really fully understood in America or gotten to in most organizations. And then I think the other piece is the inclusivity. In America, we're very focused on the birth mother and leave around like FMLA is for the birth mother because we are basically saying it's a physical recovery, which is true. But I think it's also a statement that we're making to families, which is the birth mom should spend more time with their kid. The birth mom should, in doing so, like determine the schedule, the doctors, all of the things. And so that when the partner comes home, they are being told by the mother what the schedule is. Like the mother, and that is where the inequity starts. And I think working in some of these organizations globally, we are learning, I hope, that there's a different way, a better way that actually leads to better long-term health outcomes for families, for children, for society, for organizations.
So let's expand on that a little bit. Like, what does a company gain by investing in women and even extended parental leave policies? What does a company get from that?
I mean, I think that the business case for diversity is really clear. A lot of people have made it, which is it leads to better outcomes if you are for your organization. So it would make a more successful organization. If you are better able to speak to your customers, your audience, more authentically because you have a diverse team that understands their needs more, you get maybe a global perspective or different perspectives, and we all need to be innovating more. Like AI is shrinking the half-life of skills. Like we need to be creating like entrepreneurs in our organizations. We need to be creating people who are super curious and like want to go after new problems and not just working on the same problems with the same tools that they had. Like that that part of corporate America has to be behind us. Like, we're entering this new world. And so I think you gain that, the innovation, the success. And so I think that like, in this moment with DEI going away in a lot of organizations or going underground in a lot of organizations, I do worry about innovation because women are adopting AI at a much slower pace. There's a lot of reasons for that. Women are more likely to say they want training, they need training. Also, if your general counsel says to you, you shouldn't be using these tools, guess who's more likely to comply? Women. Women see using these tools as cheating, and men see it as innovating. Like, that's happening right now in our organizations, and I think companies don't totally understand that. And there's also trust issues. There's a huge trust gap for women when it comes to AI. There are like climate impact. Women are more likely to be concerned about, like the impact on the climate for some of these big data centers require tons of water. There's like a real impact on the climate that women are really sensitive to, the ethics around AI. Women are also disproportionately likely to be under attack from the deepfakes, the deepfake technology. And so there's a lot that we need to do as a society and organizations need to do, and these platforms need to be doing to make AI safer for women and more ethical for women to want to participate in, which is unfortunate because AI is shaping a lot of decisions, hiring decisions, who gets access to health, like certain social services, it's healthcare decisions. And so it's in women's best interest to actually help shape this technology. They just have to start using it. And we have to overcome all of these things that are deterring women from spending time with this technology.
How can women use AI today? Like, so for the women who are watching, who are wanting to like kind of dip their toe in the water with AI, how does it help them in their professional life?
I mean, so many ways. So many ways, but I will answer that by telling, I think, a cool story, which is I taught Gloria Steinem how to use AI along with Karen Klein, one of our lead investors from Bloomberg Beta. And we went to her home and taught her. She was 90 at the time. She's now 91. 90 at the time. And we started with, what are some of the things that you do every day? What are some of the things that you're thinking about? And like really tapping into how could AI plug into the ways she's working and the things that she's doing. And I guess that's the same I would say to everyone else. The example people use all the time is LinkedIn. People you can see it on LinkedIn. People are using it, and that's great. That's like a good step one. Like the text in, text out is how people are using it, but it's actually so much more powerful than that. And the other thing I think is personally, how can you use it? And I did a training, over a year ago with Women Defining AI, which is a great resource for women. And a lot of the examples are personal, because if you're going to be figuring out, for me, how I can leverage ChatGPT to help my 5th grader study for her social studies test and get 100%. Like, that is a really awesome use case for me. And now I kind of start understanding the power of it. I had it make a song for my kids in the style of Taylor Swift. So there's lots of tools like that, maybe like a little bit more advanced, but there are just many.
It's the mental load that it can take off of you as a woman outside of the office that frees you up for other activities, right?
100%. Yeah,
So
100%. I mean, I think, and that is actually one of the things Gloria Steinem saw about the opportunity for women. Like, we shoulder disproportionately the administrative tasks that work at home. And if you can offload some of that to these tools, Claude, ChatGPT, like, you can free up some of your time to do the higher order thinking, the things that get you promoted, the learning and development that gets you promoted, or the spending time with your family in ways that are really meaningful to you. And so I think that's really true too. I mean, also you can use it as a coach. You can use it to coach you to ask for a raise, for example, and you can go back and forth and it can give you feedback. Like, these kinds of things that women actually historically haven't had access to, that mentorship. You can have a version of it in your pocket.
So you're almost saying like AI is kind of a safe space for women who might be, afraid to ask for professional development or mentorship. They could actually converse with AI to help them grow and develop.
Yeah, like AI can make experts out of people around a topic. AI can be the data analyst that you might need, but you can't hire right now. Like, it could be your thought partner. It can be so many things. It can help accelerate, getting feedback on an idea that you have or a deck that you're creating. Like, it can really help women at all levels. We just have to start using it.
Yeah.
And so I think that, like, curiosity and the experimentation, and also I know so many women who started using it maybe a year or two ago. Not just women, a lot of people started using it, and then they got stuck. It's like human nature to get stuck in a use case. You're like, I use it for LinkedIn, and like I know how to use. I use AI, and they're using like the free version of ChatGPT, which is great, but like, and it's creating more LinkedIn posts. So now the like cost of communication has gone way down, because now they're like, I can just churn out LinkedIn posts like no one's business, and they're doing 2, 3, 4 a week, and they stopped there. They didn't get more curious. They haven't explored more tools. And so I think that's the other thing of people who have started. Like, I think there's like the people who have not started, I have advice for. People who have started and got stuck at a certain place, I think it's about carving out time to try new things, to try new use cases. And for women, I always say, like, you should be talking to your friends about this. Like, when I meet friends that I don't know through work, I know through my daughter's school or my personal friends, I talk about this all the time. I bring it up. I bring up use cases. I bring up how I'm using it for my daughter's school. I'm bringing up like a cool project I just ran to, I'll give you one, for example. For Gloria Steinem, I built this, we went to her with this GPT that was a pep talk from Gloria Steinem. And like, you can do that by what we did is like fed it some of her speeches and some material. And like, that's the kind of thing that you could do that's like fun. Like, you should have fun with it. And I think women also are very time poor, and they don't have the kind of time to invest that maybe some men do, because we have more caregiving responsibilities. We are shouldering a lot of work at home.
That's so amazing. So my last question for you, Erin, as we wrap up this session, how are today's female leaders mentoring the next generation of women?
I think women in leadership are more invested than ever in bringing more women to the table. I've seen it firsthand. And I also think, the new generation, the younger generations that are coming into the workforce have different needs. And they see the kind of corporate feminism we were raised with, which was like, outwork everyone.
That's right.
You can have it all. And what we learned and what they've seen is actually like having it all broke a lot of people. It burned out a ton of people. And there's a lot of women in leadership that have kind of like decided, actually, I don't want this anymore. This doesn't serve me. This doesn't give me all of the things that I want in life. And younger generations in the workforce actually want so much more. They want much richer lives. They want more flexibility. And I think that understanding is helping us bridge the different generations to make sure we create a workforce that they're going to inherit, that they actually want, that they can actually thrive in, that they actually have a shot at succeeding in. And I feel, for me, motivated. My daughters are 8 and 10. Like, I have 10 years until they start coming into the workforce. Like, that's how much time I think I have to make work better. I know you and I share something else in common, that we're both Girl Scout troop leaders.
Yes.
And Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors, was a Girl Scout. There are, I think,
Taylor Swift was a Girl Scout.
Okay, I love that. That's a good one. Yeah, it's the largest entrepreneurial program in the country. Girls are learning about finance, leadership, teamwork. It's really, like, I think, such an important accelerator for women into leadership positions, as is sports. 94% of women in the C-suite played a team sport. Like, I think, kind of looking back even further, investing in those things for our girls, like those opportunities for our girls, and making sure they join sports and stay in them, I think is also something that we can all do. And we've seen organizations start to invest in sponsoring these sports teams. And there's so many of them. It's like that shirt. I actually have one too, the t-shirt, like, everyone watches women's sports. It feels like that is changing. And that's not something that was true when I was growing up.
Not at all.
So I think those are some of the answers. And then the big answer is AI to me. How can we mentor and more women and get more women and girls to use these tools that are shaping workplaces, they're shaping jobs. And I don't know what kinds of jobs our kids are going to have access to, but I do know that jobs that have or roles that are primarily women are actually more of a target for AI disruption than fields that are majority held by men. And so I think there's a big opportunity for us raising girls and mentoring young women to make sure that they understand how to use the tools. They're using the tools. They're like in their daily workflows that they, and I think in some cases schools are telling us like, we don't really understand it. So like no AI. And I don't think that's the answer either. And so I do think mentorship around leadership qualities and characteristics, but also like the tools that are going to shape the workplace, we have an obligation to make sure women have access to those tools and they know how to use them.
Yeah. I love your mission statement. You have 15 years to change corporate workplace culture for your daughters and mine.
Yeah.
And so cheers to that.
Yeah.
Cheers to that. Let's change it.
Let's do
make
it.
More.
We're doing it.
We're doing it right now.
We're doing it right now.
It was really great to talk to you today,
You
Erin.
too.
Thank you.
Thank you.